Hey guys, it's Tony Gattari here with another business video vitamin. Hey, I just wanted to probably share some ideas about time management, and this is an area that really I struggle with. You know, there are a lot of things that I'm naturally gifted at, sales and marketing and negotiation, and time management is actually something that I am consistently challenged by. So when I talk about this, I don't actually want to talk from a position of an expert. I want to talk about somebody who actually is walking the journey with you. And this is what I've learned, you know, over many, many years of working with large teams. And there's a great book that I would strongly suggest that you actually get by Stephen Covey called First Things First, which is probably an exceptional book on time management, one of the best that I've actually read. In it, Stephen articulates the challenge that we have, and he calls it the clock versus the compass. And you've got to understand the differentiation. The clock is traditional time management. The clock is you go on a time management program, and it actually they teach you how to speed up the clock. But the point that Stephen makes, and a very valid point, is that before you wind up the clock, you actually have to set the compass. And the compass is what is your true north. Because ultimately, the compass must dictate the clock. And I think that's really, really important. And Steve actually articulates this by creating this little diagram that you actually see here, which is called the urgent versus important matrix. And you'll notice that in it has 4 quadrants. And you'll notice the first quadrant on the top left-hand side is quadrant 1. Those are those activities which are very urgent and also very, very, very important. Okay, and really that's quadrant 1, and we call that the quadrant of necessity. And in many ways, quadrant 1s are very, very evident in business. They're like picking up the phone, opening up the front doors, collecting money from your customers. So it's really the quadrant of necessity. It's effectively a bit like a body where we have to do certain things just to stay alive. We have to breathe, we have to eat, we have to sleep. They are called the quadrant of necessity. So there are certain activities in your business that are necessary for its survival. Please make sure that your people are doing those things. Please do, because sometimes they get deflected into a different quadrant. The next quadrant is, I believe, a very important quadrant, are those things which are very important but they're not urgent. This is quadrant 2. I call it the quadrant of quality. And the quadrant of quality are those activities that you must act on it. It doesn't act on you. And I'll give you a classic example. We all know the value of health. We all know the value of actually going and doing regular exercise. But really, exercise doesn't act on you. It doesn't say you must do this. It actually forces you, it engages you to say you have to make a commitment to turn up. You have to make a commitment to turn up at 6 o'clock in the morning. You have to make a commitment to work out for an hour, even though you may not enjoy that initially. That's quality. Now, in organisations, quality, some of the areas that I would consider to be the quadrant of quality are things like training. You know, a lot of people say, oh, we've got no time to do training, Tony. We're so busy, we're working in it. Well, really, that's fantastic, but you've actually got to work on it. The other areas are planning, are preparation, are strategy. Those are the things that are the quadrant of quality. Those are the things that you must act on it. Those are the things that force you and the business to actually really lay down the foundations for the long term. And you can always ignore them. You can say next year, you can say next month, you can say next decade, and you could say never. That's quadrant 2. Quadrant 3 is a very important quadrant. And it's apparently obvious is where a lot of people spend a lot of their business life. They do those things which are very urgent, but they're not important. I call it the quadrant of deception, because deception is effectively the twisting of truth. Just to twist it enough that it's a lie, but it doesn't look like a lie. And I think in many organisations, we get caught up in deception because we allow others people's urgency to reflect on us. They get stressed out about a thing and they transfer that emotion to us. Things like that I would strongly consider to be is actually not having the ability to say no. Okay, letting your mouth overload your back, for example. Saying yes to everybody, being totally exhausted because you haven't really achieved anything during the day because all you've done is put out fires for the entire day. It's almost like, you may as well put a fire engine cap on and actually saying, I'm putting out fires. And what's even worse, some people create fires so they can put them out. That's extraordinary. And that's called the quadrant of deception. And the fourth quadrant is those activities which are not important and not urgent. I call it the quadrant of waste. And I'm telling you, we can do a lot of waste in our society now because we have so many devices that are time wasters. Hey, you know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about Facebook, for example, at work. I'm talking about, we're doing market research and we're just browsing the internet. And you're browsing it for hours and hours and hours and hours. You do Facebook, you do all your social media stuff, and you actually call it marketing. And you waste all of this time, so much time, things like gossip. And here is the point that I'm actually making, and this is a really important point to me. If you spend too much time in quadrant 3, you get exhausted. You get totally exhausted, and guess what happens when you go home? You focus on quadrant 4. You are so tired, you need a stress release, and part of that stress release is you actually go into the quadrant of waste because you're trying to recover from the miserable, hard day that you've actually had at work. And all I'm suggesting is that ask yourself, where do you spend most of your working time in? Is it in quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4? And as Steve actually said, know what quadrants you're in and ensure that you can start to, first of all, eliminate quadrant 4 and definitely reduce quadrant 3. And really, just this other slide is really a really important thing. We live in a society of efficiency. And efficiency is, we want you to become more efficient. Between you and me, guys, don't sweat efficiency. Focus on being effective. Effectiveness must rule efficiency. Being effective is getting the results of what are the key important variables that are going to drive your business success. That is being effective. Because it is quite possible, and this is a question you've got to ask. The question is not whether you're doing things right, because that focuses on efficiency. The key question in time management is, am I doing the right things? And if you can focus on the compass and then accelerate the clock, you will see dramatic results in your business and in your life. So guys, that's it for another week. God bless you all, and please come back and tell your friends about this amazing channel.